Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is November 5th. I'm your host, Patrick Rodgers, and we have another great call for you today. So quick look at our agenda. We've got latest updates on SharePoint Framework. We just got two patterns and practices updates for you today, updates from the CLI and the reusable controls, as well as our normal updates around community samples. We also have picture time for our together mode pictures, so we'll look forward to doing that. And then we have three great demos for you today from Alex, Jerry, and Akash. The first one from Alex, PnP Field File Type Field Customizer Reusable Control. That's a new reusable control. Excited to see that get in there. Jerry implementing a world clocks web part. That's going to be a cool solution there for some localization, internationalization stuff. And an Outlook add-in with SPFx to save attachments to SharePoint. So another very cool use of SPFx in kind of a place we don't see it a lot in Outlook. So excited to see that demo later in the call as well. Always learning something cool from everybody's demos. So a lot of folks are always curious about how do you get more involved? How do you participate a little bit more in the Patterns and Practices program, or this call more specifically? So if you would like to demo on this call, whoever you are, wherever you are, please just reach out to myself or Vesa. And those demos can really be anything client-side development related, web parts, application customizers, stuff around provisioning, anything you really create for your company or for your customers. Of course, make sure it's something you can. If it's something you've written for a company, something like that, you want to make sure you can share it on a call, but we would love to host you on the call and have your demo. Just reach out to us. Those demos can include, of course, anything from the @PnP family of solutions. So PnP JS, the CLI, reusable controls, the Yeoman generator, or any combination of those things. So always excited to see that and excited to see what folks are coming up with as well. Contributing to GitHub. Really encourage everybody to contribute if you can, or if you have some time. Great ways to contribute are reporting issues. We don't, as I say, love getting issues, but we love hearing about them so we can get them fixed and resolved for future releases. So it's important that we do hear about any trouble or problems you might be having across any of our solution offerings. You can always submit pull requests. All of our pull requests open to your contributions. And then, of course, as well, if you happen to have a little bit of time or happen to see a question you maybe know the answer to, maybe you've already dealt with that issue, jump in and help out. There's no reason not to jump in and help out your fellow community members with questions, and just speeds along everybody's path to resolution. So appreciate everybody that's doing that. And of course, if you haven't, welcome you, all of you, to start doing that. I encourage anybody to participate, and we'll talk about it in a second. If you are unsure on pull requests and things like that, we do have the Sharing is Caring initiative, which David will talk to in just a little bit. Of course, we also welcome feedback across everything we're doing. So providing feedback around these calls, around the documentation needs, and positive feedback is, of course, okay too, because that will make us maybe do a little bit more, or focus a little bit more on those things that you do like or enjoy in the calls and so forth. And this is our page of links. So we've got a whole bunch of content here for you. We've got developer videos, community videos, open source repositories. So we've got 4 big organizations that we try and promote as much as we can. That's the SharePoint, PnP, Office Dev, and Microsoft Graph organizations in GitHub. And I finally, after months and months, added the .com to the GitHub link for Microsoft Graph there. Clap, clap, clap. And sample galleries, so tons of great samples, web parts, extensions, list formatting, and Teams samples as well. Sample galleries are a great place if you've written a neat sample or have a sample you'd like to share. Would love to have that included in our sample galleries as appropriate. So like web parts in the web parts gallery, extensions in the web extensions gallery, and so forth. And those can be really, almost anything. So just whether you're using Microsoft Graph, whether you're using some PnP stuff, whether you've just written a really neat SPFx solution, those are all great samples. I know when I've got work to do or I'm doing research on something, I check out the sample galleries as a great starting point for my work, and I encourage you to do the same. And then finally, the last link, the link to remember, aka.ms/m365pnp, will get you all up the Patterns and Practices program details. It'll have all these other links on that page, as well as descriptions to the program and things like that. So aka.ms/m365pnp is the link to remember, and from there you can get to all of these other resources. And aka.ms/spfx for your SharePoint framework documentation. And with that, I'll hand things over to David for our Sharing is Caring update.
All right, thank you, Patrick. So for those who are new and even those who are longstanding veterans with us, the Patterns and Practices community is completely open source, and that's from a using the resources, consuming the resources, as well as the contributing to the resources. But we understand that sometimes that can come with some hurdles, some education and guidance that's needed and useful. So the Sharing is Caring initiative is here to provide you hands-on guidance in not only consuming, but also contributing to the different projects and initiatives within the PnP and the community. They build upon one another. They're all completely free to join. They are hands-on, so we're going to work together, and they do count as contributions, and you're going to actually be able to see exactly how to do it. We create resources for you in advance of the sessions, so it is very interactive. It's not just a watch and learn. We are working together. The sessions build upon one another, and as you can see, they start in a first-time contributor session and build from there into a variety of topics, including community docs, SPFx samples, and more. The end of this month is going to have our first multi-day, multi-session event. Now, it's not all day. It's going to be about an hour, hour and a half spread across 3 days for how to set up your workstation, get involved, learn how to use NVM, learn how to submit your samples back, use CLI to upgrade. It's going to be a lot of fun, very interactive, very much like a workshop, like a little boot camp. We want to also thank all of our October attendees. As you can see on the screen, it's been a fantastic month. We would love to help out and be involved with all the rest of you that are interested in learning how to use as well as contribute back. So aka.ms, Sharing is Caring, completely free, no charge, and we're going to work together with you. Hope to see you soon. Thanks. Patrick, back to you.
Thanks, David. And really fantastic program. Really excited to see the number of people getting involved in that and doing their first contributions coming out of those sessions. So really, really great stuff. And if you're looking to get involved, as we talked a little bit, this is great. If you're unsure how to get started or just want a little bit more information, great sessions. They're free. Definitely check them out. And excited for those workshops. I think we're going to see some awesome stuff come out of those. We've had some great samples come right out of the Sharing is Caring workshops themselves. So now, SharePoint Framework updates. Vesa, I'll hand things off to you.
Thank you, thank you. Let's go to the one slide. This is just an update on the growth curve, which we're having with SPFx, which is actually looking pretty normal. So our growth curve since August have been pretty awesome. It's slightly slowing down, which is as expected, as we're gradually heading closer and closer into the holiday season, and we can see then the slowness to arrive roughly in the Thanksgiving week, because that's typically what happens in the past as well. But SPFx in the Microsoft Teams is growing at the moment at 48% increase month over month, which is just out of this world. So it's pretty cool to see the growth, and people are building also Microsoft Teams extensibility with SPFx, so building tabs and personal applications with that. Now, a few updates which we haven't actually announced before. So we are looking into potentially even before end of calendar year to release a SharePoint Framework 1.12 version. And this is a breaking news, which haven't been said before, but we're looking into potentially doing that. I can't promise that yet, but it's mainly there to provide additional properties and context for the web parts, which are being hosted in SharePoint. And the primary purpose of that one is to reduce the requirements of having DOM dependency or DOM injections within the SPFx web parts, because pretty recently, we did do optimizations in the modern pages, and then people freaked out because they had done DOM level injections and style injections dependent on the HTML structure of the page, which, by the way, we do not support. And then people got broken, and then there was we rolled back that change. Now, what we want to do is to understand those scenarios so that we can actually give you a supported way of doing the same functionality which you were forced to use DOM injection, because you should not have a dependency on a HTML structure of the page. That's not something what we support. So that's basically the main reason for the 1.12. And then potentially we are able to get the complex theme solutions included in that one as well. So that's a good update on that one. But there's a lot of plans and improvements on the SPFx platform, and really focusing also on the Microsoft Teams side in the future. But that's it from my side. Patrick, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Vesa. And now we've got our updated CLI for Microsoft 365. Released a new version, 3.2, with retrieving personal Teams apps, retrieving Teams tabs, Knowledge Hub site URLs, deleting modern SharePoint sites, simplifying updating a to-do list, and updated the CLI architecture. So some internal changes to CLI there. Really excited to see this continue to grow. Tons of great contributors involved in this, as with all our projects. But npm install-g at pnp/cli-microsoft 365. You can find more information there at aka.ms/CLI-M365, and that'll get you all the documentation and updates for the CLI for Microsoft 365. Available natively in the Azure Cloud Shell now, which is very exciting. So you can use this right in the Cloud Shell. Excited to see that. And then as well, aka at CLI Microsoft 365 on Twitter is the great thing to follow there. All right, and now reusable components update. Alex?
Yes. So not many updates. We released the new version for React property controls 2.1.1, and basically there is only one fix of auto-generated localization. So in 2.1.0 we added these localizations, but I messed them up. So we quickly fixed that, and now we have like about 20 localizations, I believe, for React property controls. And also follow us on Twitter at M365PnP Controls, and more information as usual in our documentation. Thank you. Back to you, Patrick.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Alex. And now Hugo with updates for our samples.
Thank you. So the PnP SPFx samples are repositories that are here to help get your project started by providing sample code that's built by an inclusive community. We absolutely welcome everyone, and we encourage a positive attitude in helping each other. These repositories should absolutely be the first step that every developer takes when they need to start a solution, like Patrick said. The updates for the last 2 weeks on the SPFx extension side, aka.ms/SPFx-extensions, we have an update to the file type renderer extension, where Alex Terentiev added a code tour. And on the web part side, we've upgraded the PnP JS Explorer by fixing some button layout by Abderrahman Mujahid. And then the security grid by Russell Gove has been updated using the Office UI Fabric 7.1.14 and fixed some icons issues. And then again, with Abderrahman updated the content query web part, where he fixed issues with special characters. We also have Abderrahman again updated the graph calendar, the FAQ app, and then Sebastien Levet updated the graph calendar for us. The Workbench Customizer by Joel Rodriguez has been updated, where he fixed a package solution error that we were getting. And Don Kirkham, who is actually a Sharing is Caring graduate, updated the carousel web part and the word game web part to SPFx 1.11. I really love all the contributions that everyone's doing in the community. If you are interested, please don't hesitate to submit your contributions. And that's it for me, Patrick.
Awesome. Thank you, Hugo. And yeah, the samples, as I said before, really amazing work by everybody. And it's my first stop for trying to learn and get ideas when I've got a new project or I'm doing research around something. And so now we are up to optional picture time. So if you are interested, turn on your camera. Completely optional, but certainly encourage everybody to do so. And Vase is going to get a together mode going on here.
Yep, here we go. We can see people joining. I'm going to eat up a one.
I'll turn on my camera today. I'm part of it now.
If you can make it.
I don't know. We'll see. I made it. Oh, look at me.
I made it as well. So everybody, let's wave. Some pictures and smiling. Awesome. I'm going to take one picture over there, another one. So we get a good selection of people. And somebody's fixing still lighting. And there we go. Excellent. That's it for this one. I think we're ready to go for the demos. Thank you. Patrick, back to you.
Awesome. Love that. That's such a fun thing every week to see everybody. And I think it makes us feel all a little bit more connected. So with that, Alex, I think you are up first based on our system of you're the first one in the list.
Okay, let me share my
screen. And we're almost on time. This is amazing. I took so much time on SPFx 1.12, so really good. So Good work, Patrick.
We were
Doing
on
awesome.
time, but you jumped in to tell us you were on time, so that's good. Alex, take it
You're welcome.
away.
All right. So this demo is about field file type render that is a part of PnP React controls. So in PnP React controls, we have a bunch of controls that you can use in your field customizers, and not only in field customizers. If you develop some custom lists, you can use them there as well. But basically, these types of components allow you to render your data in the way similarly to how SharePoint renders their list fields in out-of-the-box UI. And field file type render renders the values similarly to what you have in a document library when you see on the type of your document or folder. And from implementation perspective, it's pretty easy. As always, you should import your control from the library, and then you have only 4 properties in this control, and only one of them is required. So this is the path to your file or to your folder. IsFolder flag allows you to show if you want to display the icon as a folder, and CSS props and class name allow you to provide additional styling to this column if you want to. So let me show you the example of what we have. So basically, this is the document library. We have column here, and instead of modified date, I'm displaying the icons using field file type renderer. So as you can see, we have similar experience in type column and in modify column, and some of the icons are even better. So for example, for MS App, which is for Power Apps, default UI is just a blank page, but in our field file type renderer, you can see that it's actually the something from Power Platform. So now let's go to the, and yeah, by the way, as you can see, the folder, for example, here is black, and all the file types are kind of blue. So let me go to the code and show you how it's basically done. So file type renderer TSX is our field customizer component that we use to render our cells values. And in the properties of this control, I have 2 props defined: the path, this is basically the URL to the file, and flag if this if the current list item is a folder or it's a file. And the renderer method is pretty simple. So we have our field file type renderer. We are providing path. We are providing isFolder flag. In CSS props, we are checking if we have folder or file, and based on that, we are using different colors. So that's how we define if our icon will be black or blue. And additional class name here, we are providing additional class for folder. There are some small issues of displaying the folder icon, so we need to remove margins left and top to display it in the same way as icons for files. And in our main method, in our render on render cell method of field customizer, we're getting path and isFolder from current list item. So you can get the URL or path to your file from file leaf ref field of the list item. And for isFolder flag, you can use fs_obj type field of the list item, and you can compare it to 1. So basically, if the value is 1, it means it's folder. If it's 0, it's a file. So we are getting these 2 parameters, and we are just rendering our field type renderer as usual, as done usually in React. And basically, as you can see, it's like 10 lines of code to use field file type renderer, and basically I believe it's one of the easiest components that we have in the library. So that's it from my side, and back to you, Patrick.
Great stuff. Thanks, Alex. Interested to see all these new controls and new capabilities to the controls being added. Jerry, I believe you are up next.
Yes, I am. Let me share my screen. All right, so hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jerry Yasir and I'm a Microsoft MVP for Office Apps and Services. First thing I want to acknowledge that I've been MVP for a few years and this is my first demo at PnP and something that's not part of my main job. So, you know, it's something that I want to admit before anybody actually catches something in my code. So I am an Office 365 architect. I don't do development as full-time or something like that. It's all learning that I did through a PnP stuff and some other, you know, all the training that's available on the PnP GitHub sites. So I took a look at some of the samples and I decided to build something that I was working on. So this is the PnP word clock web part that the idea came from the SharePoint Online world time web part. But the idea was to actually develop it, make it reusable so that we don't have to add it to every page and start writing the location of the company. So giving you some of the so in this next 15 minutes or so, we'll be looking at the overview of the web part and then looking at the demo and the code. So it will be quick. I would not be taking a lot of time. So the behind the scenes for storage of the clocks, we use a SharePoint list. And the SharePoint list is very basic list with the title of the location and the GMT value, which is in the positive or negative GMT or UTC time. You can enter that time. Additionally, you can also your web part or your clocks using setting the order of the value, very traditional. Once you do that, you can also set those clocks to active or inactive. So when you display those web parts on the page, only the active one will appear on the page. Additionally, the web part is responsive. So if you put it in a smaller zone or a smaller section, it will automatically resize itself to the appropriate size. For the formula for the time calculation is done using a custom formula. We are not using, or I'm not using any of the DST time zone calculation values at this moment. It was my first, though there were some examples that you can use to check if the current time zone has a DST, and then it will apply the updates automatically. This version does not have that. For reading SharePoint data, we are using PnP. It was simple at that time, first learning, so I thought that's the best option to have. The two types of clocks that the web part uses are the analog clock and a live clock. Both are available on GitHub. They are free to use. So I picked them instead of creating everything from scratch. And I think I will not be able to create them anyway. So let's quickly jump into the demo. Switch to my SharePoint site. So you can see that I have the web parts added to the home page. I was playing with it. So let me edit the screen, and you can see that I have the web part is right here. You can edit the properties of the web part. You can enter the title of the web part. Then you have to select the list. So I'm using the list selection, property pane from SPFx. So to select the list, and you can set up 3 different type of properties. You can allow the web part to have time. So right now you can see that the time is set to off, and if you turn on the time, it will actually show you the time in the digital format, which is the live clock time. And you can also show active or inactive clocks. So if I turn it off right now, I have only all of them active, maybe one of them not. So show title is also a section. I can actually turn it off if I like to actually not show any title. So that's the simple web part. More if I go and customize the section, you can see that it will automatically expand and take the full space. If I publish the page, you can see that the web part will move on the full space. Additionally, if you see that the web part also has, each clock has a different, you can say, theme. The theme is predefined in the web part code. So based on the time of the day, the web part will show a different color. You can see that the white is New York, so it's a morning time, so it will show a small tooltip. It's having a red day. If it's in the evening, so you'll see that the gray or light gray color will be used, and it's in the night, it will use a dark black color. So this is the basic web part theme. The web part analog clock will automatically update. At this moment, I'm not showing ticks on it, so that it basically very annoying when all the ticks are moving at the same time. So seconds is not visible on the screen. That's why I've hidden it. But if you want to take a look at the list behind the scene, you can see that this is the list. You can see we have all the locations defined, and we can set those active or inactive or set the order. And the GMT values are right here. So before we move on to the next one, let's quickly take a look at the code. So I must admit, this will be a very basic code for many of you who have been developing React-based applications. It was my first. So excuse me for anything that you feel funny in it. So the web part uses a few properties. You can see that some properties like selected list that are visible on the screen. Load location is the method that is used to get values from the list using PnP JS. The web part is very simple QD using get list items command. You can also have the show active only or show title properties. To display those properties, I'm using the property field list picker. Simple, it's straightforward. Just configure some of the basic values, or maybe in reality, I went to the samples, I look at some of the samples, and I was able to understand how easy it was to actually implement that. For the show time, I'm using the property pane toggle. Simple. Again, this is not a training, so very basic stuff that's in the web part. But in the implementation, the implementation is done basically, and the most of the stuff is in the component did mount. The clocks are actually a clocks collection. Array. So when I get all the items from the locations, I loop on each and every one of them, and I mentioned that this is using a custom formula to calculate the date time. So this is where this happens. This is where we are getting the time. It's actually a custom formula available on the internet. So you, based on those values of the GMT, you calculate the date, the time value. And I'm using moment.js to actually making sure that I have the correct time. And once I have the time, I calculate the basic time of the day value and add that string logic. This could have been done a little bit better, but I felt just for fun, it will look nicer to have this kind of a message. So it checks if the time is, from 4 to like 6 p.m. It's a day, and then if it's a little bit later, it's evening, and then the rest is night. Once it's done, basically I'm pushing all the string values that I'm collecting, including the clock. So you can see that I have an analog clock, and analog clock is basically that the whole clock visible on the screen. And if the user choose to show time, then I'm using the simple clock, which is actually the React live clock that you can use. I'll show you the demo of those clocks very quickly. So once the loop is finished, in the end, I'm adding those clocks in the clocks collection. And you can see I'm adding them to the state. And then below in the render component, run method, I'm actually just displaying them in the container div. So for me, this was the very first web part. So I used as much as knowledge as I can from the existing samples and from my learning, and eventually it worked. But then more I studied, I found that this may not be the right way of doing it, but I'll talk about it in a second. But before I move on to the next one, I want to go back to the browser and show you both the clocks that I'm using. So you can see this is the analog clock, and it's actually pretty cool. You can see that the theme is done using JSON, so you can actually design different themes and then implement them in the web part. Whatever you like, it's all customizable. The other clock is the React Live clock, which is a digital clock. So you can see there are so many examples there for the format and the time zone. You can set them manually, or you can set them through the web part. Now, before I close, let me jump back to the slides. So as I said, that the initial implementation of the web part was not that great. It's all looping and defining the component. So I'm working on a second release of the web part. The first update I'm doing there is that I'm not allowing the user to enter the time or GMT values as is, like +5 or -5. Rather, the list will have all the predefined globally identified time zones. So you will be selecting GMT +5, for US or Eastern time and other time zones. Then it will also automatically detect the daylight savings. If the location has a DST on, it will automatically update the time. The whole implementation will be done using React components so that we don't have that code in the render and in the component bit mount. An option that I'm trying to implement that the web part will provide you an option to either use PnP JS or Microsoft Graph, so that let's say you have a single list in the root SharePoint online site, and you want to use it everywhere else in all the site collections that you have. So that way, Microsoft Graph will be powerful because you will add the web part and choose that I want to use Microsoft Graph, and this way you will be able to select the reusable list from the root site collection. You can then this will also allow you to add the same web part as a tab in Microsoft Teams, which will make it a lot more reusable than it is right now. The final is there is one minor issue that because I was not showing the time on the web part, but if you notice that the time does not tick. So I think that's something that you can consider as not having enough skill set in React. So I was trying to fix it so that when the time is added on the page, the web part moves, or the time moves with the seconds. So you can see that right now the show time come back, but it doesn't move. It just sticks to as is. So that's part of the next release. I'm working on it based on the available time, but hopefully, very soon I will be able to push it back to the samples. And last, Teams is everywhere. So of course, I will add the implementation of the web part so that it can be added to Teams as well. That's all that I have. I've added the slides for the reference, what I've used in this web part. I will be happy to answer any questions on the samples or in the chat. Thank you very much.
Patrick and Cherry, don't stop yet, because we do have some time. I just wanted to let's reiterate some of the things. So first of all, Cherry, awesome job, and this is really, really great. Like a learning exercise on using individual packages here and there, and then combining them, and it's good that you have that kind of hey, the next steps I will learn these things, and that's a great way of absolutely learning things. So don't feel too bad about hey, this isn't necessarily the right way of implementing things, but hey, it works. In the end, that's all that matters, right? So we can always improve the code into as much as we want. So that's a separate discussion. Can we go back on the code? So can we briefly go back on the code? Because Jerry, been joining on this community calls, but every now and then we have obviously also new people here. So calling out, for example, that the web part title and a placeholder, these two controls are both coming from the React controls, so the PnP SPFx React controls. So if you go all the way up, can you show the package? Just making sure that everybody is aware of this, because you don't have to implement these things. These are super widely used across the world by third-party developers directly from the PnP SPFx controls. So those are really, really great reusable controls for everybody. And same applies actually for the property pane controls, right? So
absolutely.
If we go to the property pane and just scrolling up again, just showing the package name, because that's a good reference for finding then additional information, and that's a property pane. You didn't use PnP property pane controls here, or did you? No, you didn't.
No, I did not. I thought it was I didn't look at it as much as I wanted, but I just took the sample that I use as like a learning step had these implemented, so I thought it's using, but definitely in the next implementation I'll be using the PnP one.
Yep, absolutely. Just out of curiosity, where do you actually get the list of lists from the site? So that means that you have the code piece for that one in here, right?
I'm sorry, the list of lists?
List of lists. You had a lists in the dropdown?
Oh, yes, it's right here.
And that's the get locations. Yeah, so yeah, exactly.
Sorry. So it's right here. Yeah, so
precisely.
it's the
yes.
property field list picker. Yep.
And this calls the operation where, no, this is property field list picker, and this is not out of the box control, isn't it?
I think this is.
Really?
Yeah.
Do we have
SPFx property list
Yeah,
controls,
there we go.
yeah.
Then that's what I'm actually looking for.
Yep,
So
yep,
exactly.
sure.
So
Yep.
it is a PnP SPFx control. So again, open source community contributed control for people to take advantage. That's what I was looking for. So
Sure.
now, just out of curiosity, how hard was it for you to actually make all of these things happen? Just if there's new people in this call who are being told that you need to implement stuff in SPFx, how hard was it? And what any other learnings, just to recap your learnings on this journey?
I think the overall design, I had developed applications for SharePoint for a long time, but mostly the web parts, old style web parts. This was different because I had to make sure that I learned the React pieces of it nicely. You know, it was not simple as just dragging the button and clicking on it and getting it done. I think I struggled mostly in the properties implementation first, but once I get away from that, I was mostly thinking the classic development where, when there's a method called onProperty change, I have to have a method called onProperty field change. So I was thinking more on that, but then I realized that these are kind of the overall out of the box implementations, which I don't have to worry about. If I configure my properties nicely, and then I know that for me, the most important method is the selected list where I have, or the selected list where I know that when a user is selecting the properties from the property pane, they're actually selected in a property. Now I can play with that property. When the property change, I don't have to worry about implementing that on property change method. So when that challenge was away, the next was, of course, what is the best way to render the components? And it was not about if SPFx part was pretty okay, I was able to understand how to, write the code nicely and make it run. But once that part was done, the pieces were, what is the best way of rendering? Should I render it as component? Should I render it as a code? So initially I did just rendering directly as, I would say, a GSX.
Yeah. And that's obviously that part is always debatable. So of course, if you are you want to do academically correct React, then you create components and not inline code. But again, in the end, the React components are being rendered as an HTML to the browser as well. So they're being transformed to HTML. So it's not I wouldn't charge anybody for doing both. So, but again, depends on the coding standards and approach and all of that. So, but really cool. Thank you, Cherry, for this one.
Just one comment I want to have, that I didn't find, maybe we can work on it, I should work on it, but I didn't find a place where I can have this like a full step-by-step process to actually develop something. I know everything is there, lots of stuff is there, but I couldn't find one way of implementing, let's say, how to read the list collection, and then from the list collection, how to make, select the list and get the items and then show them in the web part. There are lots of samples out there, but the problem is every sample is using its own technique. There's no one way of doing it. Somebody's using, I collection, somebody's using array lists, somebody's using different methods. So that made it really hard for me initially to pick one and easy and most feasible method of reading those values.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And I think even on our samples and tutorials, I think we should slightly more focused on the React and really do an end-to-end story with React and Office UI Fabric or Fluent controls, because that's anyway the direction where we're heading. And for those who are like wondering why React, well, Microsoft has chosen React as the framework. Technically, you can use Angular, but most of the reusable controls are available in the React. So that's why, if you can choose React for SPFx. So
awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Cherry, for that one. So I think it's Akash then on the demo.
Yeah, I'm here. Let me just share my screen.
Excellent.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Akash Bhardwaj. I work as a Microsoft 365 developer with expertise in developing custom solutions using SharePoint framework, Power Platform, and Microsoft Azure. So after this session, if you would like to connect with me, you can reach out to me using any of these channels. And today I'll be showcasing a sample SPFx web part that I contributed a while back to the PnP repository. So it's an Outlook add-in built using SPFx that allows you to save any attachments to a OneDrive folder or subfolder. So some of the features for this web part is, first of all, I would like to actually share that I actually got the inspiration to create this from another sample in the repository that was submitted by Marcus Moeller, I guess. So what that web part used to do, so that used to actually copy your email from your, I mean, it used to copy your email to any Teams or OneDrive folder. So I just extended it a bit to allow the users to copy email attachments instead of the emails. So what you can do is, so you can select any there that is present in your OneDrive, and then you can select any attachments, like either all attachments, or you can select a few attachments that are present in an email, and then you can just save your attachments right from within the Outlook web app. So this has been built using the preview feature of SPFx that allows you to create the Outlook add-ins. And in the hood, all these operations to get the OneDrive folders and get the email attachment content and then save that attachment to the OneDrive folder. So all these operations have been done using Microsoft Graph. So if you want to use this sample in your tenants, so this would require permission for the mail.read and the files.read write on Microsoft Graph, because the mail.read permission actually allows you to read the attachment content, and then the files.read write permissions allow you to fetch all the folders present in the OneDrive and then save that email attachment file to that particular OneDrive folder. So this is how the web part looks like, and now let me show this how it works. So this is one of the emails that I have. So this email has a couple of attachments. So if I just click over here, more actions, so I see this save attachments option is available to me. So this is actually the web part that I have built in. So when I open this, so first of all, it allows me to select the folder. So these are all the folders that are present in my OneDrive. So I can select any of these, or I can also move back and forth between a parent folder and a child folder. So let's say I select this one for M365 Developer Bootcamp and then Gurgaon. And now I can select any of these email attachments. So either I can select all of them or a couple of them, and then the save button would get enabled for me. So for now, let me select these two attachments and then click on save. So once it says uploading, so and after it has completed successfully, so you'll get this small message that the attachments have been saved. So now if I move over to my OneDrive, so this was the folder that I selected, and inside this, so here you can see this says modified a few seconds ago. So this was one of the images that I had copied for the PnP Parker. So that's how the web part works. So that's about it for most of the web part functionality. It's a simple web part that just allows you to select a folder and save your attachments to that folder. Now let me jump over to the code. So this is my web part file. So in the render method, first of all, I'm checking whether this web part is getting executed in the Outlook web app. So I do that using this .context.sdks.office. So if it is being executed within the context of Outlook, so then I get the item. So that is the email that I have selected, and then I get that item ID in the REST API format. And after that, I just create this object of that I created here. So like I said, so this was actually inspired by that other sample. So most of the typings or these service methods that you find in this web part, so those would be actually quite similar to the one that we already have. So here I just construct this object that just contains the item ID, that's the unique ID of the email, as well as a list of all the attachments that we have selected. And if it is not being executed within the Office context, so then I am just populating this with some sample data, because while I was developing, I needed to actually check the UI. I needed to see how my web part is behaving, how does it look like. So for that, I used to use the SharePoint workbench itself. And at that time, this was helpful, that instead of actually getting an email attachment, I had some sample data, and I was using that to check the UI of my web part. So once I've constructed this object, so then I have this save attachments React component, and I'm just passing this mail object along with the description and the graph helper object. So this graph helper object that you see, so I am initializing this within the onInit method. So I have a separate class called the graph helper. So I'll also go over to this in a couple of seconds. So this is the class that actually deals with all these operations related to either getting the OneDrive folders or the email attachment or saving that. So basically everything where we are using the graph API, so those are handled here. So if I go to my React component, so here I have used React hooks. So I have created a couple of these variables that I'm using to store and update the state values. So inside the render method, so this is pretty much it about the UI. So nothing special here. I'm just using a couple of Fluent UI controls. And the most important methods, I would say, in this component are these two. So first one is the update attachments. So this method is being called whenever that checkbox is updated to select any of the attachments. So at that time, I have this variable in which I'm actually pushing all these items that those have been selected, or just deleting them once any checkbox is unchecked. So this method would be called whenever that checkbox is updated. And then when the save button is clicked, so at that time this copy to OneDrive method would be called. So this would first of all update this loading state so that we see that message that says uploading right now. And after that, here we are actually calling this get attachment content method. So this belongs to this graph helper. So I'll go over to this in a moment. So this actually gets the content of that email attachment. I mean, the content of each of the email attachments that we have selected. And once it has that content, it then checks whether it's a large file or it's a normal file. So this I'm doing because for saving large attachments, there is a separate process in the graph API if you are actually saving a file that's greater than 4 MB. So I have a separate method for that called save large attachment. And if it's a small file, then we just call this save attachment. And then lastly, we just update this status, whether if it has completed successfully. So then we just give this success message. Otherwise, we just show this that some error has occurred. So that's it for this method. So now let me go over to the graph helper class. So this is the class that contains all these methods. Like you can see for getting the OneDrive folders. So this would give you all the root folders that are present in your OneDrive. And then we have the subfolder as well. So if you have selected any folder and it contains multiple subfolders, so it allows you to get a list of all those subfolders that the current folder has as childs. And apart from this was the method for get attachment contents. So here we just specify the message ID as well as the attachment ID. So all these are graph API methods. And so this was the save attachment. So like I said, so if the file size is smaller than 4 MB, so then this operation is pretty much straightforward. We just call this method and it executes this REST API call to save that attachment content into your selected folder. It's a large file, so then we have to do some extra effort in this case. So what we do for this is, first of all, we need to create an upload session, because if the file size is large, then if you don't create this upload session, then it might show you a timeout error that the file size is large. So for that, I first call this create upload session method here. And then I actually break down the content into smaller chunks and then upload those as individual slices. So you can see, I mean, I won't go into the details of all this, but this is how actually we enable saving the large files into any OneDrive folder. So this is pretty much it, I guess. And once again, like I said, so you would need to provide some permissions for this. So here you can see the permissions that I specified was the mail.read and files.read write. So these can be found in the package solution.json. And here we have those types that I talked about, this iMail and iFolder. And I guess that's it for myself. Over to you, Yasir.
Excellent stuff, Akash. Really, really cool. One thing, just a really, really clean implementation and a nice graph helper for sure for people to use as a reference. So really, really cool stuff. Like Akash said, just to reiterate on that one, the Office add-in option for SPFx is unfortunately still in preview. And this is not because we wouldn't want to provide this in GA. It's just a matter of prioritization in the Office add-in side of the world. So unfortunately, we're still waiting for Office add-in people and Office client people to actually implement the full support on this one. So if you want to provide them feedback, if you would like to have this kind of a support for SPFx as well, because our idea from a day one has been that the same piece of code can actually work in a Microsoft Teams tab, or as a SPFx web part, or as a single page application, or as a Office add-in as well. But it is what it is for now. We are still waiting for the final decisions on the Office and Outlook side on this one. But I think that's it. Thank you, Akash. Really, really cool stuff. Really clean implementation, and a lot of good feedback on the chat window as well.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Akash. 3 great demos. Again, just a reminder, if you would like to demo on this call, whoever you are, wherever you are, please reach out to myself or Vesa, and we'll get you scheduled. It might not be on like the immediately next call. Sometimes we're booked out a little bit, but we will get you scheduled. We'll get you a slot. Would love, love, love to host your demos and see all your great work. So please just reach out to us. And again, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jerry. And thank you, Akash, for your great demos this week. Our recording will be available in about 24 hours on our YouTube channel, M365 PnP-videos there on the link. You can always follow us on Twitter for the latest updates. Our next SPFx Focus Special Interest Group call will be November 19th. That's 2 Thursdays from now, same time, 7 a.m. Pacific. Our next General Development Special Interest Group call will be next Thursday, November 12th at same time, 7 a.m. Pacific. And our monthly community call for November is going to be on November 10th. So I look forward to seeing everybody at any and all of those. If you can't get enough developer community calls, there are tons of great calls with great content going on about adaptive cards, the Microsoft Graph calls, identity platform, Office add-ins, Power Apps, the SharePoint calls, general development calls, SharePoint framework, all sorts of stuff. Great topics, great calls. Check out as many of these as you like. Tons of great content out there. Tons of great stuff from all these communities. So really excited to promote them and encourage you to be a part of as much as you can, of course. So thank you, everybody, for attending this week. Hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend, and we will talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.